Welcome to this episode of MoveMint Medicine podcast. Thank you to those who have tuned in for the previous episodes. We really thank you for your feedback. Please leave any comments or questions and we'll try and address those in future podcasts. We thank our partners, that's the Fit India movement, Back to Fitness Clinic, which is the clinic that Rajat runs, La Ultra the High, which is the race that Rajat puts together in Ladakh, and also the Moving Mountains Within Film, which is the film about the 10th edition of La Ultra the High. So without further ado, I'll hand over to my co-host, Rajat, who will introduce today's guest.
Thank you, Darren, and welcome, folks, for another edition of MoveMint Medicine. Today we have a special guest, Dr. Amit Srivastava. He's a friend, he's a patient, and he's a doctor to my both kids as well. So it's a very interesting relationship we have. So Amit, welcome on the podcast.
Thank you, Dr. Rajat. Thank you, Darren. It's great to be here.
Thank you so much. So, Amit, just get started with your academic and professional background, please.
Well, I was born in Delhi and I studied in Delhi. I did my schooling in a school called Modern School in Delhi. After that, I did my bachelor's also in Delhi at the Maulana Azad Medical College. This was my bachelor's in dental surgery. Then I went on to do my post-graduation at Kasturba Medical College in Manipal, which I finished about the year 2001. Then I came back to Delhi, and ever since I've been in private practice in Delhi, first with a few senior colleagues of mine, and then I have been in my own practice for the last 17 years. And that's it. That's where I am right now. Done a few fellowships in between, a few certifications to, keep myself up to date with the latest, what's happening around the world. And so far it's been good. Yes.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So we can see obviously that you've got a Roger Federer cap on there. You obviously have a very much of an interest in sport. Can you tell us about your sort of exercise, sporting, physical activity background?
Oh yes, I've always been an avid sportsman, and I also love watching sports. I mean, you can see me watching sports like archery for hours and hours on television, or just watching shooters shoot at some other target at the Olympics for hours. So that's my level of interest. Of course, tennis and Roger are something which I look up to. But personally, I have always, in school, I was in the cricket team, the football team. I used to do the long jump for my school and also for the state. After that, getting into professional exams and training for that and working my way through college, sports really didn't have much of a place because how competitive it is. But once I got done with my graduation, I went for my postgrad. And there an interesting life-changing event happened. During my postgraduation, I met with a car accident. And I fractured my spine in 2 places at the T12. And, Dr. Rajat will probably, understand that. And the doctors, the orthopedic surgeons being the way they are, said, you can't play any more sports. You can maximum lift 5 kilos of weight in your life. Go around walking and just look after yourself. And, medical profession is pretty much what you should stick to. So that didn't go down really well with me. I couldn't digest it. So within 6 months, I was swimming. And soon I was running. And I realized that I could not run very fast, but I could run long. I mean, I had endurance like you can't imagine. I could go on for kilometers and kilometers and kilometers. So it was fun. And it was also fun, proving the doctors that, you told me not to do it, but I could do this. I came back to Delhi. And then, of course, there was not much of a running culture in the year 2000 back here. So I went to the gym and I started lifting weights. And a doctor said not to lift 5 kgs, but I was bench pressing my body weight. Soon I was bench pressing twice my body weight. And I had this huge biceps and I had this big back. And it was interesting. Till one day a friend came along, this was in the year 2013, and he said, why don't you run the Delhi half marathon with me? Let's see if all your muscle can do something good for you. I said, okay. And, the Delhi half marathon, once you run it, you pretty much are hooked onto it. It's an iconic race. You run through Rajpath, you go through Rashtrapati Bhavan, you see the landmarks of Delhi. You have like 20, 30,000 people running with you. So I was pretty much hooked on to running. My gym days were over. I was running. Since then, I've run like countless half marathons. I've run about 8 full marathons. I have a personal best of 3 hours, 24 minutes in the full marathon, which I ran in the US last year. So that's been it right now. I was supposed to run London in 10 days time. I was all primed and I was targeting a 3.5 or a 3.10, but maybe later in the year now. Yes.
Thank you, Amit. How has this, I mean, since your specialty is about the dental surgeon and the orthodontist that you are, how does this whole, your old background, the personal fitness that has been there,
Yes.
How does it affect the practice, whether be for yourself or the patients?
Well, personally, it's been a real change because ever since I started running, you have to wake up early in the mornings. When you're early a riser, you have to obviously go to bed early. So there's a certain discipline to your life. You eat well. And after you worked out for 2 or 3 hours in the morning, when you reach work at about 9:30, 10 is what I target, you already have a sense of accomplishment, something you have accomplished during the day. You're refreshed. You've met your running buddies. You've exchanged your, social interactions. And I feel social interactions are really important for us as professionals, and then when you reach work, you're ready to give it your 100%. And I felt much fresher at work. Felt like I had more endurance at work. I could go on. Challenges at work, which earlier would probably faze me, don't faze me that much now. It's become something like they say, stay in the process. When you're training for a marathon, focus on the daily process. Same way at work, I just now focus on the process. And the outcome has always been positive, it's been good. So personally for me, it's been very, very rewarding to have fitness as a part of my early morning schedule. And as for my patients, I mean, they all see my running pictures. Some of them have seen them on Facebook. They discuss it with me. And a lot of the patients are suffering from, very severe lifestyle diseases, diabetes, hypertension, cardiac. And I do a lot of surgeries for these patients. So these patients really, I understand their lifestyle better. They ask me, out of the context of my work as a dental surgeon, they ask me to help with their lifestyle also. And I tell them, because I have a more holistic perspective to the whole picture, I can see that if someone is obese and he's also got high blood sugar, then I can have a holistic view to his treatment. I can tell him that, if you want this treatment to be successful, maybe you should look at reducing weight in whichever way possible for you. So the patients also are really encouraged that this doctor, is just not treating us or just not treating my tooth. He's treating a whole human being, and we as professionals or as specialists sometimes are too focused on body parts or a particular procedure, whereas we forget that there's a whole human being attached to that body part, and if we are able to address the whole human being, I think our treatments will be so much more successful. Their longevity will be so much better. And I've found that my patients really appreciate that, even though I may not be communicating it at a very technical level to them, but the whole vibe is one of fitness, of holistic well-being in the clinic. So yeah, it's helped a lot in both ways, personally and my patients.
That's absolutely brilliant. So do you think your colleagues share the same sentiment, sort of within the dental fraternity, or even sort of the medical professionals as a whole?
Well, yeah, our colleagues and friends had a bit of a tough time getting used to me as a runner, because I was a very social person and late nights and stuff like that. But for the past 10 years, it's been a totally different lifestyle. And even the colleagues, they used to be like, this guy is just going to work himself into the ground and have a burnout one day. And suddenly they're like, this guy just coming up with more and more energy and more ideas. He's adding new stuff to his practice every day. Like, what's happening while we are struggling, putting in the hours 6 days a week, and we're like close to, maybe some of them are close to burnouts, or they have some kind of professional exhaustion because they don't have an outlet other than the work they do. So yeah, colleagues now really appreciate it. And a lot of them come up to me and ask me that, how do you do this? Like, how did you start? Can you send us a running plan? Why don't your knees hurt? Like, how come you're running on the road every day? Why don't your knees hurt? Like, that's the commonest question I get from colleagues and patients. What about your knees? So then I tell them, if your muscles are taken care of, the knee is just a connection, So yeah, so it's been very interesting, but I think 100% appreciation now from colleagues and friends.
Brilliant. And what about our colleagues and doctor friends who are there? There aren't very many people who are active, right? And
yes,
so
I
what?
see
Yeah,
some
what do
of
we
my
do about that?
I really, that's what I was talking about, that as professionals, we do need to lead a life which has something besides our everyday professional work in it, right? Whether it be fitness or whether it be even fitness in the form of golf or something less, strenuous. And colleagues who don't have that in their lives, I really feel that they are heading towards some kind of a mental exhaustion or a mental tiredness. Their endurance towards their own work is not what it should be. And I see it in them. And some of them are, of course, unfortunately overweight. They don't look their age. And then they see me and I'm 46. And they're like, you're not supposed to be looking like this. So I'm like, yeah, but and my patients are like, doctor, are you old enough? I'm like, yeah, I'm 46. So that's how it is. But yeah, I wherever I can, without being overbearing or preachy, I do try to encourage my colleagues that it'll help their work, it'll help their patients if they involve themselves in any activity other than the everyday work, hour after hour of work which they do. And fitness is, of course, it has benefits so many-fold, right?
So how do we change that though, Amit? How inactive our fraternity is. Is there a way, either at college or professional life, or when, or how do we make an impact there?
Well, I think it would be great if we could have fitness equipment at all our workplaces. Like many of the multinational corporations have a small gym, or they have treadmills dedicated to their staff to use during lunchtime or something. And I think if that's some kind of advisory like that, an advisory can go out to all in the professionals in our fields amongst the association that, have for fitness equipment in your clinic, maybe like a cross trainer in the reception. And maybe if a patient comes in, like I have many young teenage patients and he's waiting for me to see him. You can just get on to the cross trainer, right? And something like that can be a talking point for your clinic, talking point for your practice. And when anything becomes a talking point, it spreads really fast, And so, yeah, I think that's one very basic way of doing it. Of course, you can always at conferences have treadmills and cross trainers, or you can have continuing education points for, for every marathon you run or something like that. But I think what catches on the most is what is a trend. And we can be a trend setter by having some fitness equipment at our workplace for our working staff, for our assistants, our nurses, even for our patients. And I think that trend can catch on really fast.
So you've sort of busted a lot of myths personally in terms of sort of overcoming the issues with your back,
Yes.
challenging sort of some of the paradigms that you'd see with sort of the medical professionals by staying active yourself, having this
Yes.
holistic approach.
Yes.
Are there any other sort of myths that you'd like to bust in terms of sort of exercise, your practice, or just some of the common myths that you see with your patients?
Yeah, so I mean, being a runner, a lot of people tell me, you should not be running so much. It's not good for you. And you'll have long-term damage in your knees or stuff like that. And then I feel that's a myth, because as long as you build yourself up gradually, you're training with some kind of science behind it, you're monitoring your heart rate, for example, or something, or you're using a power meter or something like that, where you are staying within control, with a scientific way, a rationale behind your training. I don't think there's anything like, you're running too much, or you're lifting too much weight, or you are, overexerting yourself. You might get a heart attack or another day or something like that. I think those are all myths which need to be busted, right? And of course, as with experience tells you that where adrenaline kicks in and where your personal abilities, where the two meet. And of course, you should be wiser for not crossing that boundary too often and repeatedly. But yes, I feel that's a myth when it comes to exercise. Knee pain, I spoke about, like everybody who talks to me says, why don't your knees hurt? I said, they do hurt every now and then. But I fix it, I loosen the muscle, I strengthen my glute medius, I strengthen my glutes, and I move on. I mean, injury is a part and parcel of any sport. It's like if as a surgeon, if 100% of my surgeries were successful, then I've not done enough of them. And I mean, for example, which cardiac surgeon can say that every patient he's ever operated on lives? Then he's not done enough cardiac surgeries. That's why no runner can say that he's never been injured. Of course, you've been injured. You've been injured more than you would like, right? But it's a myth that every time you get injured, you have to stop running. In fact, I've seen most injuries, or at least a few of them, can be worked out while you're running. When you go out and run and you fix your biomechanics, you fix your gait, you fix whatever, and your injuries fall into place. They get sorted out while running. So yeah, that's also a myth, that when you get injured, you have to sit at home on like a couch. No, it's active recovery, it's active rest or whatever. Doc knows better, right?
Amit, that was brilliant. Yeah. What about your tips or your advice for the society? Like, how much more should we be active as a society?
Well, I think everybody should have some kind of physical activity daily in their lives, and unfortunately, being in Delhi, many months of the year, you can't be that active outdoors because, we have a certain pollution problem for the past few years. Some months of the year, it's really hot. Some people can't take the heat. So even if you can't be active outdoors, you should have indoor options open to you. You can go for a swim, you can do whatever. There's so many avenues. But I think being active, firstly, even it just sorts out your hormones, your cortisol levels, everything. Your stress levels are busted. I mean, when I go for a run and after 30 or 40 minutes, you get into that, like it's like a meditative experience, right? And an experience tells me that that's my stress just leaving the body, right? Those are my hormones just sorting themselves out. And it's so good. It's so good. I mean, like I have a resting heart rate of 46. So, it's good. My resting heart rate is the same as my age. So it's good, So I think, yeah, everyone, the society as a whole, active fitness is a great idea. Yeah.
So you mentioned about having indoor options.
Yes.
Obviously, we're in this period of lockdown at the moment.
Yes.
Is there any recommendations that you'd have for the listeners to stay active in their home?
Well, luckily, I have a treadmill at home. I hate running on it, but it's been a lifesaver. I've been running every day on it. And but in case anyone does not have any equipment, there are many avenues on the social media open right now. So many people are doing various, from high intensity interval training to mobility routines to yoga routines to just, in fact, today I ran for 90 minutes on the treadmill, and I went straight into a meditation session online for 45 minutes. And this is the first time I ever did that today, a meditation session after a 90 minutes really tough run on the treadmill. And I'm feeling so good right now. I don't know how, but just that 45 minutes of meditation, it did something. And I'm ready for a run again. And I think indoors, we can use all the social media avenues. Like I said, yoga, and there's so many trainers there. And a lot of it is free right now, which is really kudos to the people in the fitness industry, that so much of the material available online is free to view, is free to use. And you can see what works for you and just use it. And me and my daughter do a fitness routine every evening. And she's a professional shooter. She shoots the air gun. So she needs to do balance and stability and strength. So I do it with her every evening at home, and we just put our phone and we just, her coach guides us and we do it together. Yeah.
Brilliant, Amit. I mean, you touched about, the family slightly there. Tell us more, please. Like, how has it impacted personal life, being active, How's it
A
been?
lot, because the discipline of going to bed at 9:30. So now my daughter goes to bed at 9:30 and I go to bed at 9:30. Right. Earlier, my daughter used to go to bed, and then I used to be going to bed at 11:30 or 12 o'clock. So my wife has no option. Even goes to bed at 9:30. So everyone has a very disciplined life, and initially it was a bit of a challenge. Yes, and everyone had to get used to this. Like, suddenly, what's happened to dad? Like, why is he going to bed at 9:30? But now I think everyone appreciates it, and they're like, even my wife's work has become so much more productive, and because now she has some discipline which has, as a effect of my discipline, and my daughter also, and everyone's happy about it, I think. Yeah, it's really changed the way we live our life as a family. We eat better, of course, because now we eat salads, we eat fruits, we eat foods with good glycemic index. So yeah, and we don't have that much red meat and stuff like that, and we are eating so much better as a family, and yeah, so it's good. We are eating better, we are sleeping better, we are working better. What else do we need?
Fantastic. So just out of interest, if you go to bed at 9:30, what time do you rise in the morning, and what's your basic morning routine?
So I will be up by about 4:30, and I'm a slow riser. So I'll get up, I'll make my tea, and I have a weakness for cookies, which is the only indulgence I do in the whole day. So I'll have a few cookies with my tea, and I think it takes me about a good 1 hour by the time I'm out of the house. So normally by about 5:30 or 6, I'm running, and depending on warm up and cool down and stretching after the run, it takes about 2 hours for the whole workout. So I'm done by about 8:30. I'm home by 9, and I'm at work at 10. So yeah, that's how it is. And of course, I've learned to my most of my food arrives every 2 hours at work, because I eat smaller meals now. I eat my meals more frequently. And so I'm taking mini breaks at work to eat my food, but then I virtually work throughout the day. Yes.
Amit, it's been an absolute pleasure having you over.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. I hope I was of some use to the listeners.
A lot.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So this is the end of this episode of MoveMint Medicine. And sign in, guys, for our future episodes as well by subscribing to our channel. And that is it. Thank you, guys, for watching.
Thank you.